Feel free.
Thank you. My name is Jacquelyn Thompson, not doctor yet, hopefully very soon, next couple months, but I appreciate the good thoughts, positive thoughts. Thank you very much for inviting us. Um, Janaya Jones originally reached out on retention, on recruitment and retention. And one of the things that we talked about was just how, although they are go hand in hand, there's so many aspects to both that two separate presentations might be advantageous. And I know that the last time this group met, I believe, we had several of our recruitment folks on for a panel discussion. Our format is just a little tiny bit different. I'm going to introduce Vonnell Baggett, who is a passionate student services professional who has been in this work for many years, brings a wealth of knowledge to the table in regard to adult learning, all aspects of the community college style of education where we meet the student where they are and really help them define their path. Sometimes that is from the GED or adult ed level, and hopefully they continue with us through different educational opportunities that fit with them. And oftentimes it's not the credit side or the credit path that these students will seek. It's short-term programs, both in continuing education and workforce education. And we are seeing here at Florida State College at Jacksonville an increase in the desire from our students, both in the way that they are interacting with us online to request information about programs. The application numbers have been increasing for the short-term programs. We had a meeting just the other day about our marketing and website, and the most growth that we've seen is for our specialized web pages for short-term programs. So definitely an appetite out there. And that's more on the recruitment side, getting the student connected with their educational journey. But what Vonnell is going to talk a little bit about today, and then we'll have plenty of time for Q&A afterward, is that persistence piece. Once we get the student here, how do we ensure that we're supporting them in a way that will, get them to their desired finish line? So without further ado, I'm going to turn the mic over to Vonnell for a few minutes, and I know that you have a short presentation for the group.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity. It's a privilege, and persistence and retention is something very dear to my heart. But I want to share why. I mean, personally, I was a high school dropout. I left school at 16 and I graduated with a GED from this institution many years ago. So as far with me personally, having that experience, I know I've sat in the seat of someone who with very braveness comes back and says, I'm going to finish my education. And how do they persist? I believe I know that's a magic bullet, but I'd love to share with you just a few things that I've found that really make a difference with our students. Let me share my screen and you just let me know if you can see the screen.
You're good.
Okay, good. So I'm the director at Downtown Campus. I love my campus. It's the campus where I would probably say the highest percentage of first generation students, probably the highest percentage. I know it's the highest percentage of second language learners. It is the campus where many people come. Their mode of transportation is by bus, and so it's a campus where if students are going to persist term after term, they're going to have to connect. And so I found that the 4 pieces of the puzzle to retention and persistence that I implement at my campus, and I'm sure you have many things that you do, would be this. The first piece would be to focus on the student's strengths. When a student comes to you, whatever your program is, whether it's adult ed or it's a clock hour program or it's a credit hour program, to take that time to actively listen and see what it is that the student has the skill set and the value with. Listen to them. And I know you do. Actively listen and find that connection where you can focus on their gifts and their strengths, and then take those strengths and show them how they will be successful in the path that they've chosen. Sometimes students don't choose a right path. Maybe they have no idea which path that they need. But listening to a student, building rapport, which is what your advisors do or your specialists do, building that rapport allows you to say to that student, you're more important to me. You're not a number, you're not a name, but you're a person with gifts, and I value what you bring to the table. When I was in adult ed, I remember the first person that I spoke with when I went back to school. It was Miss Wilson. And Miss Wilson became my adult ed teacher. It was at South Campus. But what I loved about her and what allowed me to persist when I was probably, so embarrassed. I didn't think I could do it. She sat with me and she said, Vonnell, you are really good with people, and you care about people and their circumstances. She sat and she shared some things about me. And the only way she could have known that is that she spent time actively listening to me in class and focusing on what my gifts were. And she really made a difference. I persisted. I finished my high school, and then I went on later, not at that time, but I later returned to school and finished. Well, I've finished my master's as of now. So when we focus on student strengths, then we build a touch point, and we build their confidence in themselves. The second piece is to personalize the plan. Just to give you an example, I sat with a second language learner this morning, and this second language learner had no idea how to access her financial aid. She had no concept of why she was struggling in the class that she was in. And as we sat and talked together, this is a young second language learner, and I began to ask her, if you could be anything in the world, if you could do anything, what would you want to do? And little by little, I gave her some homework, but she's coming back to see me next week. And I told her to bring her top 3 wishes of what she could be. I told her to go in YouTube. She said one of them was a nurse, which is what 90% of people usually say. I said, then go to YouTube and search a day in the life of a nurse. And when you return next week, we're going to personalize your plan, because you will aimlessly walk around. Our students will not persist if they don't know where they're going. But when you create a plan from what they say that their desire is, and you show them the length of that plan, and you talk to them about the cost it would be personally in their family, as well as for them financially, and you show them what the end result is and what the starting salary is, that allows that student to say, you know what, I can do something. I do have gifts, and I have a path to get there. And without a path, I have found it's like getting on the road on a road trip, and you get in there and you say, where are we going? I don't know. We're just going. And they don't persist without a plan. But when you personalize a plan, it does make a huge difference. And the third piece of the puzzle is to showcase your students' supports. Showcase your career coach. Showcase if you have someone who works with students who are in academic warning or probation, your student support services for those who have IEPs or special accommodations. Showcase the tutoring, the Learning Lab Commons, where you have your writing tutors, your science, your English, even your language tutors. Make sure that you showcase those resources. And I found the best way to showcase them with this population oftentimes is through a link with a 1 or 2 minute testimonial. Many do not read, but they will click on a link and they will look at a short testimonial. And so as you showcase all of those resources that are there to ensure that they persist and they complete, you'll find that they will connect. Showcase your all of your clubs and showcase everything that could be a great resource for that student, and continue to keep it front and center. There are many of our supports that I have special pieces of information in the student services area. I will oftentimes, our advisors, when they are showcasing a specific support that a student needs, they'll do what's called a warm handoff. They'll walk that student to that support. They'll introduce them. And that makes a huge difference because the student doesn't have to go cold. You know, they have that warm touch, that handoff. Just to give you an example, this week I had a student who is failing. He's failed for 2 terms. And we discovered that he needed an individual education plan, or he needed accommodations, and he came forward with that. But sitting in my office, I said, I want to introduce you to a few people. And I brought in the support coordinator and introduced her to him and his family. And I brought in the success coach so that I could let them have that opportunity to build or touch that student. And when he left, I know without a doubt he knows where those offices are. They exchange phone numbers, and it just said, you are valuable. Before he left, I said, listen, your best days are before you. You're going to achieve what you set your goals on. And we're going to create that plan, and all of these supports are there to make sure that you reach your destination. And the 4th piece would be to communicate with students and to celebrate their successes. And when I mean, there are many avenues that you can use to communicate. So for example, look at the metrics. I don't know about your institution, but at our institution, we have the ability for students to provide a survey after they see a student. That's an important metric. You know, did the student what's the percentage of the appointments that did show up? What did the student's survey look like? What was the student's response time to that survey? Having the advisor send nudges. I don't know what your institution has, but we have just implemented my grad plan. It allows us to send text, and just to take that opportunity and pull your student group and look at those end grades or the week before class ends, and send a push text that says, hey, I'm thinking of you and you're going to do great this week. Or, wow, I saw you made a 4.0. You want to share with others how you did that? Those advising nudges are they're almost like that's the extended family. That's the family beyond your home. Making sure that you keep up with your early alerts and being in tune to those insecurity needs that your students have. Those are the metrics that you use to be able to communicate and to celebrate, make that plan. And I oftentimes will have students go and complete an assessment that looks at not only their interest, but it also evaluates their aptitude with timed measurements. It's called the Career Scope. And it's a wonderful, wonderful resource for that student to look at, because it generates about a 15-page report that is specific to that student. Knowing the student's strengths and being able to let them know their strengths, it just builds that confidence, and it really helps with persistence. Lastly, the outcome metrics. These would be, as you're keeping up with your students, if you see their grade point average fall, you're pulling your student group and you're saying those students who are below a 2.5, it allows you to capture them early without them coming into you and say, I'm struggling. Looking at your time to degree, how long it is, did you meet those goals that you had as an institution? Looking at your postgraduate outcomes, how many of these individuals are now employed and working? So these are the four pieces of the puzzle that I would say make a huge difference in students persisting and us keeping them. Thanks so much for giving me this opportunity, and I just look forward to hearing your ideas and your questions.
Fantastic, Vonnell. Thank you.
But the first question we have here from you is, students often tell us that they need to stop attending in order to work or earn a living. What strategies have you seen to encourage people to help see the big picture and continue?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. Well, one of the strategies I use is being able to personalize that plan for that student. And then we have resources. Single Stop is a resource that perhaps we would look at the community resources that might be available for that student. I would say that the average age of our students would be about 27 years old. They have kids, they work a job. Listening to them, I will encourage them. I will ask them, well, look at your life and look at where you want to go and ask yourself, are you willing to invest that time where you would normally maybe work two jobs? Are you willing to invest that time to continue to reach your goal so that at the end of it, it allows you a seat at the table for those different employment opportunities? I would encourage institutions to look at providing spaces for parents with children, study spaces where their children can be a part of that. They're welcome into that area. I know in my student services area, we have quite a few computers, but I have an entire area that's filled with a huge playhouse, Barbie doll playhouse, and all of these different, things that kids enjoy. And then I have another area for boys, and then I have a library book for children, and I have furniture for those children. This has been a place that I have had parents more than once say to me, I can't thank you enough for providing something that my child would enjoy while I'm trying to figure out what I need to do in this situation or with this financial aid. I hope I answered it.
I believe so. Do we have any other questions for Vonnell?
I just had some comments about that, and I know that this is a big conversational point for this group, for anyone in higher ed right now. I picked up a sandwich last night at Jersey Mike's, and big, huge poster on the counter, hiring starting at $14 to $17 an hour. And I don't know about you, but we're seeing the increase in the number of students that are opting out, even short-term programs, because the labor market is such right now that many can, connect with jobs where they're making significantly more than they were before COVID. And, in comparison at the time, that's just very enticing. So this is an age-old question, but I feel like, Janiah, you're right. I mean, this is a big question right now as far as, should I go out and earn versus stay in school for the long term? It's hard for people to think long term, all of us, but certainly, somebody who is, getting by day to day and making those day to day decisions with their families, a lot more difficult. I would say from the information, my takeaway from Vonnell is that the key to persistence is being proactive and hands-on. That in especially our business, in workforce education, in adult ed, you cannot wait for the student to raise their hand and say, I need help, because the student's not going to raise their hand and say they need help. It just doesn't happen much at all. So it's up to us to really be there and to be alert to those things that are happening with the student. The very first moment the student doesn't show up to class, or has a poor performance in some type of assessment in the class, then that's the moment that we reach out to them. And also create space, like Vonnell talked about with, the invitation for children, not necessarily in the classroom, but, space for students to connect with those resources even before they get to the point where they miss out on a class. So yes, big picture, we can see the numbers right now. So, we know the big picture is that we're struggling as institutions to convey the outcome that students are looking for. They really want to know, how is this going to impact my life? How is going to school going to make a difference in my life and my family? Um, we always here at FSCJ, we'll market the fact that we have many locations and that we're affordable. But it's really about the why. I mean, that's true for all of us, that, we want to know why. Why should we do it?
I'm going to say that I applaud you bringing up what you just brought up, for a lot of reasons, in the fact that when I first started working in workforce, I think one of the biggest challenges that I found was our instructors are from industry. And with that expectation, a lot of it is showing up on time, trying to get them job prepared. But because they're from industry, they didn't necessarily have that student support side. And that was one of the things that we had to work on. It's sort of like, what are triggers and when should you probably be not yelling at them for being late, but when you're seeing that they're constantly coming late, like, what's the issue? What's keeping you from getting here on time? Kind of reframing, I think, is the word I'm looking for. So I think that, that is definitely something we can work more on in adult ed, and some of those pieces, because I don't know about y'all, but I know we're very fortunate at HTC to have on-site student support and student services on site with us. I know when I attended a PSAV program in a prior institution, that was not it. If I needed help on something, I had to go from the center to the main campus, which was 15 miles away. So I wasn't able to get a financial aid question or a whatever dealt with on campus. So we're very fortunate here to have services on site, and I hope that others are able to have that as well. But recognizing too that there's might be some training that we can do with our instructors who might not be from that education side, and just really kind of helping them understand how to utilize resources and look for triggers. And probably whoever wants to do their doctoral dissertation on that, provide, could probably make a good amount of money as a consult, for some different areas. But I appreciate you bringing that up, because I've definitely seen that in practice, and appreciate it. I know, Faith, do you want to ask your question? Do you want to go live and ask your question?
Actually, it wasn't a question. It was just a comment about like the work scenario with students leaving school because of work purposes. And I was just commenting that I start early with students, encouraging them to do work study, letting them know that it exists, and asking if, if they did, when they did their application for financial aid, if they included work study, and showing them how to do that, because it's so important for retention with students if they can get a job on campus.
I agree with you 100% too. I'm going to just add that we even have to sometimes have talks with our advisory board members not to steal our good students. I don't know if anybody else has this issue, but every once in a while, maybe a student is working part-time for one of our advisory board members, and then all of a sudden they magically get a full-time job offer because they're really good at what they do. And then the student's like, I can really work now and I'll come back and finish later. We all know the answer to that one as educators. You know, so sometimes we have to call on our advisory board members and literally say, please don't hire them full time. Let them finish school. You know, so yeah, yeah, exactly that, Faith. I'm with you 100%. That is something we've had to have conversations with, especially in this economy, where, you know, they want to, you know, they either overwork them or willing to give them, you know, double time, or they're willing to do all kinds of things, but we want them to also complete that education and be able to move forward. Questions, comments, open mic.
I just want to add, Vonnell, this was a wonderful presentation. I took notes, and I could definitely see your passion and thoughtfulness, and that goes forth in student retention. So I really appreciate you presenting today.
Thank you so much. I'd like to ask a question of you, my peers. How do you make sure that you connect and get that low hanging fruit when students graduate with their GED or adult high school diploma? What do you have in place possibly that just more or less, you know, streamlines them to workforce or whatever their skill set is? How do you capture those low hanging fruit?
I'm going to have to, I know at HCC we don't have a GED program right now. Ours was absorbed into we recently, within the past year and a half, during COVID, it was actually absorbed back to, but we do have our ESL program, and our ESL programs I don't know that they don't bring them over, but we need them to. That's one of the things we really want them to do, site visits, come see us, not just tell them about it. You know, and I think I think if students physically saw our training center, physically saw our things, and it was a part of that regular curriculum, where they could physically see potentially themselves here, that would help out a lot. So that's one of our populations we're working on trying to get more hands-on with.
So
Oh, we lost your mic, Faith.
okay, so at Daytona State, our adult education area does like a showcase every semester where they it's hybrid, so they have it in person and then electronically, where students learn about all of the support services, and then they will bring in many of the programs that students are most excited about going into. So they'll have like an overview where students can then meet the program managers and learn about the enrollment process.
That sounds great, Faith. Have you seen some success or fruit from that investment of the time from your
Not
managers?
numbers, you know, I don't work with adult ed directly, so haven't followed up with the numbers, but there's definitely a good show of students that attend. We also have a wonderful program that's been going on for 30 years or so called Fresh Start, which is very unique. It started through formerly our Center for Women and Men, which is now called our Hope Center, and it was targeted towards displaced homemakers, and now it's everybody. And so it's a 2-week session that walks out these steps of enrollment for students in a group setting. And Fresh Start has been extremely beneficial and successful in helping our students that need the help through their enrollment process. And, you know, I explained it to students like, you know, our traditional enrollment process assumes that students know what to do. And our Fresh Start programs assumes that students don't know what to do, and they do it together in a group, and it's extremely helpful for our students to get them through the enrollment process.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great idea. I love that. Mm.
While you're on that subject area, I'm also curious to know, by the way, I'm sorry, I jumped over this. If you saw in the chat, April mentioned that that Northwest Florida is no longer offering ESL or GED courses. But that they used to do visits straight to the admissions program after they complete, which I think that's a great little segue and pushing that off. But the other piece that I was curious too is I'm wondering how many of us in this room actually have, I guess on-site or close student support for our programs. I don't know, and the reason I ask this is I know for our students, we're fortunate, and I know we're in the lucky club that we have an on-site, counseling staff and student support staff. We don't just have to tell them, go to campus to get support or try to hand them off. We actually have them physically here. And we also know from data from about Generation Z that Generation Z is not going to ask for help. We kind of have to walk them there. If they trust you to explain the issue and you hand them off to somebody that you trust, then they have an inherent trust like that. But they're not just going to go take somebody's card and give them a call or show up at their office. So I'm just curious how many others have, feel that they have the support network nearby that's going to be able to assist, or if they feel that they could do better. Just curious about that. Not seeing much response. So, well, I hope that whatever circumstances are set up, that works well for your institutions and the students are getting the support that they need.
I'd just like to say something about Generation Z that I don't know if we've really thought about it, but this is the generation that they were preschool or first grade when Columbine happened. This is the generation that they were that young when the towers came down. And they have lived their entire life attending school knowing there's no safe place. I mean, it's been since they were young. And then this is the generation that when COVID happened, they watched family members lose their jobs, family members having to live together, seeing their parents, many of them losing jobs. And so you are so right when you say they're not very trusting. It does make a difference when you touch them and you care and you walk them over. It makes a huge difference, and we need to listen to them because their needs are a lot different, and they're digitalites. They don't want you to give them a card. They want you to give them a link. They want you to, they don't want you to send email and say, would you come see me? They want you to send them a text. That's what they respond to. But knowing that is the generation that is here now that's attending school, the 19 years old, all up to 27, it really makes me think about how they have had to look at the world and be prepared for anything, any devastation. And it's just quite interesting now capturing them again after COVID and seeing the turmoil of their family is a great opportunity to build a connection with them.
Anyone else? Thoughts? What are some best practices that you use at your institutions?
This is Jacqueline. I just wanted to follow up on
Please.
something that we said before about classroom visits, that FSCJ currently has an EOC grant, and we have a group of part-time enrollment coaches that go into the classroom. So and do that. And that was a great use of that group, because they can provide so many other services and support to students. Because it's a grant funded program, they can pay for the student's application fee and, sit down with the student and walk them through the entire process, as well as provide, support, academic support, tutoring, connections, and things like that afterward.
Okay, well, seeing none here, we're going to assume that there are no more questions about this topic. We've all resolved it in the state of Florida. No, I'm kidding. But hopefully folks were able to get some great ideas. We appreciate you all very much sharing, and also taking the time to share your insights, because especially in the adult and continuing education space, and we're it's almost like we're just such a little bit of a different world, that and we're dealing with people with sometimes that have a lot of need. They might already have homes and children and all these other things that they're established, and we will definitely need to network and grow, and that's why we do these sessions, and is really to try to share ideas from institution to institution. Yeah, I agree with what Leslie just said. I will have many questions, I know, tomorrow. You're going to sit down and you're going to think about it. You're going to go home tonight and be like, what do we do? And opening up and we appreciate you, and especially FSCJ, for leading this conversation, to know that you're there and available for us to contact if we have questions, or just want to get a third party view, and be like, hey, we're having this issue, how would you handle it? And just knowing that we're allowed to do that with each other as a state and network that way is important. Did you
I'd
have
like
any
to ask
final
one more
thoughts?
question. Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
like to ask
please.
one more question of everyone. What are the most popular clock hour programs or career certificate programs that you have? And do you find that when you offer them day and evening, do you find that the evening is more popular than the day? Or how have you honed in on those certificate programs that are, it seems that your student population in the work area where you're at, that they want more than anything? And then how do you provide it in the time that they need it?
I can share from HCC, since that's my direct area. We can't have enough welding right now. We cannot offer enough welding spots. We could have an entire workforce center filled with welding if we wanted to, and probably still have leftovers, people who just couldn't get in. We have 3 shifts. We do a day shift, an afternoon shift, and a night shift. And they're 5-hour courses per day, and they're done within it. The complete program is done in about 11 months, completely, for basic welding. For our other programs, automotive services is also one of our most popular. We have 2 shifts. We have a day shift and an afternoon shift. And primarily that is also so that they can work a half day at a shop, either in the morning or the afternoon. And I would say that if anything, that's feedback that came from our advisory boards, that if they're going to have a job and actually be able to make any money and really kind of get in, work, leave, they really need about a 4.5 to 5 hour gap, kind of working a half day. So that's why we have looked at our shifts and trying to have them fit with kind of like what a shift work would be. Like if they go in at 7 o'clock to work, they can be done at noon, come to school for 1 or 1:30, or the opposite, or be done by 1, be at work by 1:32, that kind of thing. And I think that has worked well with us looking at doing comparative and like what's a shift for our advisory board members. So those are our we have other programs as well. We can't, fire fills up, but we unfortunately don't graduate that many because that's a really high loss program for us. I don't know about others, but that's a challenge. And then, but for us, it's welding and automotive services are our most popular. We also have collision, which does very well. Diesel, which does very well, and we have a new heavy equipment program, but I would say that our demand is not as high for those programs. We don't really have the wait list that we would have for auto and welding. And Leslie commented welding, HVAC, and auto. We don't have an HVAC. We have an apprenticeship HVAC, but not an HVAC program. But if we did, and cosmetology. Oh, wow. That's very true. Any other super popular programs and how you decided to schedule them?
I would say CNA, our nursing assistant program, is really popular. And along with what you guys said, cosmetology, welding. One of the challenges on the CNA side of it is the semester starts, where students can kind of pop into a nursing program at some other institutions at will. And with our institution, they start when the semester starts, but it is really popular. We lose them though sometimes in that period of time in the waiting between when the semester starts.
You just brought up a great point, Faith. That is one of our challenges. We do cohorts. We try to have you start together and end together. Where we lose them is we don't have the flexibility to kind of stick them in wherever because of the progression of the way that everything works. It's sort of like you start with the basics and then you do electric and then you do this, and those are all foundational courses in a row. We can't just really stick you into preventative maintenance because you don't have that other stuff. So we lose them to some of the, we will lose students to some of the private schools because the private schools will make sure that they can start people in a different way. But yeah, we lose them in that wait period. Just start the next cohort with that too. Well, seeing no more comments, I'm going to say again, thank you very much, FSCJ and your staff, for these excellent opportunities over the last 2 sessions. We really do appreciate you, and thank you for taking the time. Again, look forward to joining us in the future shortly at our open meeting so we can talk more about ideas, and look forward to that announcement on the apprenticeship 101 program coming up in September. Thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to having you at future events.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.